All right, guys, when it comes to what's going on in politics today, we still have Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin going at it with the press, letting them know how they both feel when it comes to passing or not passing this $3.5 trillion stimulus infrastructure bill. We're going to talk about what's going on in details, as well as when it comes to this mandatory that a lot of businesses as well as governmental branches are mandating. Is it a violation of our civil rights? We're going to discuss that. And if you wait until the end of the video and watch the whole thing, you get a chance to see what the current as well as the future of Social Security and retirement is going to be like, even starting in 2022. We're going to talk about all that in details here, where you're going to get all facts, no fake, no phony, and no fluffed up information when it comes to what's going on in politics today. And if you're interested in getting this information on a daily basis, well, you've made it to the right channel. All you need to do for yourself now is subscribe. Click that bell notification so you get the latest and greatest information coming from Mostly Money, because we're going to always be here for you and your loved ones. Let's get started. Yes, there is a mandatory with a lot of companies. However, even though we know how important it can be and trying to do what Nancy Pelosi used to say, Chris, do we have to have our civil rights violated in order to get this done?
Well, let me show you where Americans are. You want to talk about being divided down the middle? We're divided down the middle. We asked about this. Should employers require for in-person work? Basically 50% yes, 44% no. And here's the political divide. We put that up. It looks very familiar. 82, it looks like the presidential approval rating, the way it splits there, Hallie Jackson. This is as much a political decision by the Biden White House as it was a scientific decision.
And they think it's a winner, Chuck. I mean, politically, there's obviously the public health perspective here, but I was talking with one White House official who said, listen, they believe that the politics are on their side on this. It was interesting to hear Governor Hutchinson talk with you about the business aspect of it, because I will tell you, it did not go unnoticed in the Washington Post yesterday, carrying a piece with, top business leader in the Houston area, not Houston, more blue than the rest of the state, but basically saying this is giving some businesses, and I'm paraphrasing here, businesses some cover. We haven't had the phone ringing off the hook. The White House took notice of that, right? They think that this is giving the ability to give some private businesses a little bit of cover and say, well, our hands are tied. OSHA's making us do this. So they are optimistic about it. That said, Chuck, the numbers that you just showed tell the whole story. This was politicized from, listen, April of 2020, right? May of 2020, when there was a different president in office who was taking a very different attitude towards mask wearing, right? And that's how this came about.
Kimberly, it's still an acknowledgement that the strategy it's not working. The strategy hasn't been working. Now, maybe there's nothing he could do with this current crew of people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there is a percentage of people who, no matter what happened, they're not only not going to get, but they're going to push against this and politicize it any way that they can. But we have seen, just to Hallie's point, some of the businesses that have already taken upon themselves, Delta Airlines, others, to impose mandates. What happened? A portion of their employees who hadn't been vaccinated we saw it moving the needle. And I think that the president made that calculation. There's going to be pushback. Certainly once you have the federal government coming in with a mandate, however strongly it's rooted in the Constitution, which I believe that it is statutorily and constitutionally, people don't like that. There are going to be people who, that's one of the reasons that they pushed against because of a federal mandate. But he had to balance that against what is actually going to work, what is actually going to get in arms, what is actually going to help businesses move forward and the economy move forward.
All right, but Doris and George, you guys look at this through decades of history. Is this going to work, or is this going to backfire?
Oh, I think he had to take the step, and you had to make sure that it had the possibility. Look, mandates have been part of our history for so long. Go back to old George Washington. He mandated that his soldiers get inoculated against smallpox, and he made a great comment that I think appears today. He said, necessity not only authorizes what I'm doing, it compels me to do this, because if the smallpox rages, it'll be worse than the sword of the enemy. I mean, that's where we're at right now. I think for Biden to reestablish himself as the leader of the country, he had to respond to this crisis in a more muscular way. He was losing ground because the states were taking so much authority and talking about what they didn't want to do. And you have to, in a crisis, show that you're mobilizing every national resource, that you're giving direction to the country, and you're making the country feel that they are a whole, that they're collective. Individual liberty has to be balanced against public safety. And I think those are the decisions he finally made.
George?
George, the other George.
Yeah, the other George. You think this works, or do you think it'll backfire?
It'll work in the sense that it will encourage people to get, and that's a good thing. The president's impatience is understandable, as is his exasperation, but constitutional government and the rule of law requires patience. Remember, Barack Obama said 20 times he could not unilaterally do what eventually he unilaterally did regarding immigration because he was out of patience. And the same thing is happening here with Mr. Biden. Courts, however, look askance at executive agencies that extract suddenly vast, indeed unlimited new powers from old statutes.
Well, OSHA, though, has had some success at having those authorities reinforced by the
But the
courts.
Centers for Control found out that when it decided that it could have an eviction moratorium in the name of containing it, the statute would not permit that. This is either unconstitutional if, indeed, Congress has delegated essentially legislative powers to these executive agencies. That would violate the non-delegation doctrine, which, alas, has been dormant for a long time in the court. However, it's illegal if they are reading the statute and finding no mandate for this behavior.
It's going to be a court battle, right? I mean, that's where this is
Exactly.
going. And I think the White House understands
White House
that.
wants a court battle, weirdly enough, don't they?
Yeah,
They
and
want
they're
the
ready for
attention.
it. And they're
Yeah.
ready for it, right?
And so
And
do
they feel like they have their
Republicans.
ducks in a row. And
Republicans
Kristi,
want that
no.
fight,
I mean,
too.
Right, you've shown this.
And in the meantime, you'll start getting more going. I mean, that's the key.
Now realize, we understand that based off of the statements that the panel had to say, that there is a lot of individuals that are for it and against it. It's all up to you. It depends on what company you're working for. If you want to stay with that company, whether you're working with the government, if you want to stay working with the government or for the government, do you want to get these mandatory? Now, if you already have you should be fine. But if you're an individual and you are adamant about not getting, you need to ask yourself, what will I do just in case my company asks me, or at least mandates me to take? So you have to be prepared for just in case that moment takes place. And speaking of moments that are taking place, today, Senator Joe Manchin is still speaking out in regards to how he feels when it comes to this $3.5 trillion stimulus package. He's still saying, no way, I'm not going for it. I can't be budged.
Party leader Chuck Schumer says he's moving, quote, full speed ahead with this package. Will he have your vote?
And that's fine. He can. He will not have my vote on 3.5, and Chuck knows that.
Many of us made a major compromise in going from the $6 trillion bill that we wanted, supported by the overwhelming majority of Democrats, down to 3.5.
We spent $5.4 trillion, and a lot of that really continues way into next year. We haven't dispersed it all. I think a strategic pause is necessary right now. We have the unknown, and the unknown is everything you've been talking about. What's going to happen with what it'll do to the economy? No one's talking about inflation or debt, and we should have that as part of the discussion.
What the Senate wants to do is get this worked out by this week so that the House can vote on it September 27th. Is that a timeline that you can support in any way?
There's no way we can get this done by the 27th if we do our job.
Well, I mean, a few days here or there, it doesn't matter, but there is a sense of urgency.
They're using their leverage, the House progressives, just like you are.
That's fine. And if they can go home and tell people that, hey, I don't care about the roads and bridges, you don't need it. I don't care about internet service, you don't need that. I don't care about fixing water and sewer lines. I don't care about the hard infrastructure that's deferred for the last 30 years. I've got all the problems that we have addressed in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and that's the one that has the emergency.
We're going down a two-track approach. Both bills are going together. I happen to think that Joe Manchin is right. Physical infrastructure is terribly important. But I happen to think that the needs of the human beings of our country, working families, the children, the elderly, the poor, are even more important. And it would be a really sad state of affairs for the American people, for Congress, if both of those bills went down.
I just respectfully disagree with Bernie. I've never seen us in legislation. I never thought the purposes of the progress that we make in legislation was basically hold one hostage over the other. You have a bipartisan bill in the most toxic atmosphere that we've ever had politically. I'm willing to find that balance, but to do it in 7 days, to come back and do it in 1 week when we don't have.
Are you hard now
on the 3.5? Yes.
Okay.
Now, mind you, if you heard what Joe Manchin had to say, now, mind you, even though we have Senator Sanders that's still an advocate for the bill, as well as Elizabeth Warren and other individuals in the House and Senate are proponents for this bill, Nancy Pelosi is saying, listen, we have two bills. If you allow us to go ahead and get this large $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill passed through reconciliation, we can get that taken care of, and then they can focus on the $1.1 trillion package that's already been approved by the Senate. But the House is not voted on it, and Nancy say they're not voting on it until the 27th. So once the 27th comes, will they vote on it if they're still working on the $3.5 trillion one? That's the question. Well, at the end of the day, Joe Manchin is still the same one that was just as stern in March when it came to the third stimulus package. I remember him vividly saying, I'm not for this. I'm not going to vote for this third round of packages. I don't believe that individuals should be receiving stimulus money. But then all of a sudden, when he got what he wanted put into the package, he agreed with it. And the stimulus bill had passed on. This was the third one. Joe Manchin, once again, is putting his foot in the ground by letting individuals know where he stands. However, at the end of the day, Joe Manchin, who was just on board a couple weeks ago with all 50 Democratic senators, but he's the type of senator that's so wishy-washy that he's for one thing 1 minute, he's against it at another time, but then he'll swing back and all of a sudden the full infrastructure bill will be approved. Now, the numbers may change, but at the end of the day, it may be 3 million. But we don't know. One thing that we do know that I have to agree with Joe Manchin is they may not get all this done by the 27th. Why do I say that? There are 4 major things that the government is working on right now. The federal government is working on the federal budget. This is the time period in September in which they focus on the budget, the annual budget. Second thing they're focused on is raising the debt ceiling. Yes, they're focusing on that as well. We're going to talk about what they mean and what's the details behind raising the debt ceiling. Also, they are working on these 2 infrastructure bills. So these are important things that are taking place over the next few weeks. And we know there's only 2 weeks left in September. Also, they're working on passing a budget for individuals to receive benefits or receive assistance when it comes to those that were impacted by Hurricane Ida. So all these things need to be approved within the next few weeks. And Joe Manchin is saying it just won't happen. And I have to say, I agree with him. But at the end of the day, if it takes a little longer for them to be approved, at least hopefully the programs that'll benefit you at the end of the day will still remain or be added to this infrastructure bill. We're going to keep you guys updated in regards to it. Now, speaking of being updated, there's a lot of things about Social Security that most people just do not know. You think that you know about Social Security, and many of us only focus on it right before we need it and right before we get ready to apply. For example, most individuals don't know that the current and future of Social Security, even up to 2022, over 50% of individuals, their main income are their Social Security benefits. Over 49% of retirees that are on Social Security also work a part-time job. You have 18% of us have already decided that we will work full-time all the way up till the age of 70, and there are even 12% of Americans have decided that they're going to work full-time for the rest of their lives. But there are still other things about Social Security that even young people and older people, we just don't understand about Social Security. For example, 39% of individuals don't know the age of eligibility when it comes to Social Security. So I'm going to let you know now, 62 years old is the earliest that you can apply for Social Security benefits. It is no longer 65, but it's actually 66 to 67 years old when you can apply for full-time 100% of your benefits. And if you wait until 70 years old, you will be able to get up to 125% of your benefits. That's why some people are just waiting until 70 years old, even though most of us apply at 62 years old. Another thing that individuals don't realize that most people just don't know about Social Security is this. 51% of us, we don't even know how much we're going to get when we retire. We have young people and older people. We always receive that list in the mail that gives us a little bit of information on the estimate of how much we'll get paid, but we kind of shun that off. What you need to do is go to the Social Security Administration website, and it will give you thorough detailed breakdown on what you can expect when it comes to your retirement. Whether you're 40 years old, 30 years old, or 50 years old, you want to know early enough type of financial direction you're headed to when it comes to receiving Social Security as a retiree. And another thing that individuals in our country do not know when it comes to retirement or Social Security, 30% of us just don't know that there are some benefits that our spouses and our children are eligible for as well. Most individuals, when it comes to Social Security, we just think about self, but we don't think about when it comes to retiring at 62, 66, or 70 years old, how that will impact our spouse if we're married or our children, even in the future after we're gone. So realize the actions that you take when it comes to retirement does not only impact you. Another thing that individuals in our country just do not know when it comes to Social Security is this. They actually believe that Social Security benefits, even if they retire early at 62, then hey, they still think that they'll automatically receive their benefits, their full benefits at 66. That's not going to happen. If you start applying for Social Security at 62, and if you start taking the money from them, so if you retire at 62 and you're comfortable receiving 75% of your benefits, well, that is what you're going to receive for the rest of your life. I hope this information was helpful. Well, my name is Andre of Mostly Money, and I'm here to give you all facts. No fake, no phony, and no fluffed information when it comes to what's going on in business today. And if you're interested in getting this information on a daily basis, well, you've made it to the right channel. All you need to do now is subscribe. Click that bell notification so you get the latest and greatest information coming from Mostly Money, because we're going to always be here for you and your loved ones. Now I'm going to the comments section, and I'll meet you guys there. And if I don't get a chance to speak to you and you don't get a chance to speak to me, we're not going to fret about it, because I'll be speaking to you again, speaking to you again, speaking to you again.